Hey everyone, Josh here. So today we're gonna do the oil housing assembly or the oil cooler assembly. I think this is the only TDI that they use a plastic housing, and apparently they leak. So this is a Magneti Marelli assembly off of ID Parts. It came with the gasket, so we got coolant, oil. They no longer have this kit, it's a different kit. This one came with the O-ring, whereas the kit they now have no longer has it. I ordered it just in case, it didn't really say whether it did or didn't. I got some bolts here. And yeah, so the plan of attack here, we're gonna get the charge cooler assembly off. We're gonna drain the coolant and the oil. So this was diagnosed at a different shop. The replacement of this part was quoted at $1,800 because they said they have to flush the coolant and the engine oil, as well as obviously labor to replace that. So if you're doing this, it's a good thing to check and see that your coolant doesn't look like chocolate milk, which that looks pretty good, and there's no coolant in the oil. I believe this is just an external leak, but I guess we'll see. I'm gonna drop both fluids. We're gonna check for water in the oil. The water, or coolant, should be sitting at the bottom of the pan because it tends to separate out. The oil might also be very milky if you got coolant in there, but I don't think that's the case here. So I'm gonna get the fluids dropped. I'm gonna unhook it here, same as when I did the heater core videos. Gonna get this cooler out of the way. A couple coolant lines, boost pipe, a couple bolts down here, and I believe there's like a clamp style connector. I think if you look, that's just a rubber kind of slip-on adapter. I believe there's a clamp on the back side. I don't know for sure. I haven't really done much research on what I'm getting myself into here. But all I know is I can do it for less than 1,800, so that's the plan for here. So let's get started. Okay, so we're just dropping coolant at this pump here. Just keep in mind you do have to take the fitting or the hose off of the charge air cooler, so just keep that in mind which one you want to undo. I undid the one heading to the front of the car, and then caught on I had to do the one that went to the cooler yet too. So it just makes a lot more sense just to remove the one out the cooler instead of doing what I'm doing right now. So just kind of let it drain. You're not going to be able to catch it all. There's still be some in the block, but it is what it is. So the next step, we're going to drain the oil. So the main thing you want to keep an eye on is if you pull the dipstick and it doesn't look milky, you're going to want to see what comes out right away, like as soon as you get the drain plug out. And from the picture there, it's nice and black, so it's not like there was a big chunk of water that came out first. Here we're going to take the lower charge pipe off and just kind of bend it over out of the way, and also the two lower mounts that hold the charger cooler to the block itself, and I think the oil pan is one of them. So they're just Torx bits, nothing too fancy. So once you have them undone, it'll just be that clamp at the top holding it on, and then all your hoses that you have to do yet. So I'm not going to be able to get this clamp on video because it's in a terrible spot. So they got the ears facing the rad fan. Rad fans don't look terrible to remove, but I'm hoping to leave them in. So I'm going to try and get this off with some miscellaneous tools. Yeah, it's the top side. It goes to this T here, and it just doesn't have a normal size, like a normal fitting. So I don't want to mess around with that. So I'm going to try and get this bottom one undone. Then I got this T off in the video, as you can see, and then there's just that hidden bolt on the back side, and it should be ready to go. Just getting the airbox intake removed. Once that's out of the way, you got a little bit more room in here to get some of these fittings here, as well as the clamp at the top of the charge air cooler. So once the hoses are out of the way, you can get in there and get that clamp undone. The EGR tube doesn't have to come off. You've got enough room to remove it, but you're kind of working by feel basically. So it is what it is. If you want to remove it, you can, but you can obviously do it without. Once that's off, you can also remove the map sensor wiring, and then it should be good. So I got it out of there now. I forgot the most important line was this top one, which went to the upper rod connection there. So yeah, a little bit of oil in there. You can see there. So it's kind of same kind of green slime from when I did this map sensor on one of my other videos there. I'll probably rinse this one out a bit. The bottom's got a little bit of oil as well. So like that. So if you're dropping it down with the rad fan still in there, I'm going to recommend taking this map sensor off. You get a lot more clearance. You gotta kind of bend the fans around this. I kind of got to the point where it was falling out and I couldn't loosen it off without it dropping it. So I just kind of squeaked it by. Then I'm going to take that apart, or take it off before I go to reassemble. So I'm going to clean up my work area here. And then start taking the oil cooler out of there. So just get the light in there so I'm not blocking it. You can see coolant seeping out of the block there, or where the mating surface is. So pretty confident that's where the leak's coming from. So gonna get it cleaned up so we can roll underneath here and then start working away. Okay, so looking at this housing, we've got our dipstick tube, one of the lower supports right here. So that's one of those push pin styles. So you can see at there's a split there. So if you have a trim removal tool, you can stick it there and pop it up. Side cutters work to kind of pinch it and then pop it as well. You just got to get it so that swollen part at the back can pop through. We're going to take the bolt off at the, let me zoom out here. Take the bolt off the top too for the dipstick tube and probably get that out of the way. And we've got a coolant line which goes to this coolant heater. Not sure if I can show it very well here, not. Basically on the new one, that's that line there. So the clamp on mine is on the top side like this. Really poor spot, so I'm going to use my pliers there and hopefully be able to grab onto it. The other option would be take it all out with the coolant heater itself, but that doesn't sound like much fun, so I'm going to give that a shot. But again, I don't think I'm going to be able to film this very well, so I might just skip that. So it's quite frustrating getting the dipstick tube out. Once you have that push-pull pin right here out of the housing and that top bolt out of the throttle body, or anti-shutter valve, whatever you want to call it, this just should just slide up, but it's, as you can see, seized in there with rust and crud. So I clamped pliers on like around the tube and then pry it up with a pry bar. Just gotta be careful not to go too hard because of course it's plastic as well. So once it came up a little bit, you can get a screwdriver in on the land and then just kind of pry it up the rest of the way. And then this other coolant hose off this heater here that goes onto your cooler, the side feed. Same thing, it's hard to get at, so I just undid it off the heater. So now we're gonna undo the bolts. We've got 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. It's pretty self-explanatory. They're triple squares. Let's set this down, we'll figure out what size they are. So I got new ones just in case they're rusty, which of course these are. And M8, so I'll unbolt those off camera and we'll see how it goes. So it makes quite the mess once you have it all undone. So there's the mating surface. You see a bunch of coolant crud in there, same as what you get out of the heater core. Most of the gasket's stuck there yet. That's a chunk of the coolant one. So that would have sat in there like that. But as you can see, this one's been torn. So that might have been the source of the leak. It's also missing that chunk right there. Everywhere else looks good, so that might have been the issue. And then same kind of deal, it's right full of the scale. This one's been flushed multiple times. It's had, I think, 4 heater cores in it so far. So I thought I had all the stuff out the last time when I did the heater core with the filter, but obviously there's still hides in nooks and crannies. So here's the new one. So we'll get this hose swapped over. Gonna install it. As far as removing and installing, I kind of went from above here, went up, kind of tilted it ahead, and got it up into the big space right in here. And then with that extra hose hanging off, you kind of kink it and get it up and over the hard line down here, and then drop it out the bottom. So it's actually not too bad. It does kind of look a little, not much fun, but whatever. So we're gonna get that gasket off, gonna get that surface nice and clean, and then install a new one. So there, the new housing's in. The torque spec, from what I could find, I believe it's 14 Newton meters, which is 10.3 foot-pounds, plus a 90-degree turn. So those bolts are one-time use. So we're going to torque them, so that way they don't come loose and leak. So there is steel sleeves in the, I guess I threw the housing out. There is still steel sleeves in the hole there, so you're not going to crush the plastic, but it still should be torqued to spec. So we'll get those tightened up, and then we go get ready for reassembly. Okay, so we're just torquing up these bolts here. So I imagine there's a certain sequence supposed to do. I just kind of did corner to corner and then do the other 2 corners. Just kind of tighten it evenly, and then go to your 14 Newton meters on all 4, and then do your 90-degree turn. So yeah, just kind of use common sense. You don't want to crack your new housing here, especially after it's all installed nicely here. So yeah, just use some common sense. So going back together, getting the dipstick tube back in. Not sure if I'm able to get that, but so on that flange on the tube there, I just have this sitting on it like that, and then you can just push down and kind of pop it in. So just a gentle tap, and it fell into place. So now I get the bolts in, get the hose on, and then I guess get some wiring where it's supposed to be. Okay, so here I'm kind of fishing the charger cooler up, kind of fish it up from beneath a little bit. I think I kind of just kind of held on to some of the hoses and kind of pulled it up. It would make it a lot easier if you have a second person here, to one person from above, one from below, and kind of make sure the hoses all go where they need to be, and the cooler obviously needs to go to a certain spot as well. So I think I got it to a certain point where it held it, and then right now I'm up top here and just kind of getting it onto that top seal there a bit better. So then once you got it on, you can put 2 bolts in the bottom mount to hold it to the block, and then you can put the top screw in as well to hold it to the ASV, or the anti-shudder valve. So then once that's done, you can kind of work away getting your hoses all put back on where they're supposed to be, and yeah, it's not too bad. Once that's kind of set in there, you're kind of home free, other than that one pesky clamp, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Okay, so I didn't film much of that going back together. If you took it apart, you can put it back together. Get the map sensor back in there at the end. This line down here, or this clamp, really was ticking me off. I tried putting it on, it was 180, so I tried putting it on like here so I can get on there with pliers. Ended up slipping, ended up going the other way. Just a nightmare. So I'd maybe recommend putting a good old-fashioned gear clamp on that one. I know that's not the very Volkswagen way of doing it, but might be easier for the next time you gotta do this housing. And then the other part I was really impressed with was I went to go put a new oil filter in, and this housing already came with one in it. So that's kind of cool. So it's ready for oil now, ready for coolant. I'm gonna vacuum fill it because we've had the block empty as well as all these coolant lines, so there's a good chance for air bubbles. So I'm gonna vacuum fill it so we don't have that issue. If you don't have a vacuum filler, just get it up to temperature with the cap off, And then once it's at the temperature, you'll probably see this bubble all the way down, fill it up, and then just keep an eye on it. If it starts getting really hot, shut it off, and don't open that till it cools down, and then top it up. So I'm gonna finish this off here. I gotta do a DSG oil change here yet, so I'm not gonna worry about this air box. So this is as far as we're taking it for this one. So thanks for watching.